Welcome to Inspired Chi Radio with your hosts AJ Johnsack and Tracy Sanjanetti. In this program, we explore what makes you a powerful soul by learning to connect with your guides and master your own energy. It's time once and for all to get rid of the obstacles in your life that are keeping you from being the true soul you are meant to be. Now, here are your hosts, Tracy and AJ.
Hello, and welcome to Inspired Chi Radio. My name is AJ Johnsack.
And I'm Tracy Sanjanetti.
And together we are
Inspired Chi.
And welcome to tonight's episode. I'm glad to have you here. This has been a fun ride for us as we've moved through this limited 8-episode series. And we think we've had a lot of fun so far, a lot of interesting guests, and more to come. So make sure you stay tuned each week. And Tracy, do you want to recap last week's episode?
Absolutely. Last week we had the honor of having Carrie Tuminia come and speak about love and healing and finding the relationship within yourself to find that true love, that true romance. And we did a gift away for her book. There was a lot of great information on heart healing and how to create your own love story. So if you have not had a chance to check that out, you can catch it on replay at any of the podcast platforms.
That was so interesting. When we are looking at our lives and thinking, gosh, I wish I could find a good relationship, or I wish the one that I'm in could be better, or wish I could get out of the one I'm in. Whatever.
Or that.
I have been in all of those places, as I think many of our audience members have. And Carrie spoke about the journey is the same. It all starts with, it's an inside job. It all starts with what we're looking at within ourselves to say, how did we get to that place? What did we learn from that? And what do we want to get out of that experience? So I thought it was fascinating and just a good time to do.
It was a good time. It was a lot of fun. And AJ, why don't you tell us about our guest tonight? I would love to introduce our guest today. We're going to be welcoming Joe Longo with us today. And upon being a very infamous yoga photographer, he has a podcast of his own. He has many series he's developing for transformational coaching, which we'll definitely get to in this episode. And when I thought of bringing somebody in to discuss Kundalini with me, and everyone says, what is that? Well, you're definitely going to find out. He is an expert in Kundalini yoga and meditation. So we are inviting to Inspired Chi Radio today, Joe Longo.
Hello, Joe.
Hi, thank you both so much for having me. I have to giggle when you say expert, because I'm like, really? What is an expert? But thank you. I feel very blessed to be here to talk about all of these things. As you said, photography kind of in a way like threw me out into the world, like got my name out there. But at the same time I started photography, I was teaching, and it all happened. Literally everything happened at the same time. I went to school for photography. Let me back up. I went to school to play football. And my college football coach put me in a photography class because it would be an easy A. And I failed that class. It was Friday afternoon at 3:00, and I just could not make it to class, but I fell in love with photography. And then over the summer, my coach called, and he was like, hey, you failed that easy A. And it kind of was like the first life crisis that I experienced. I'm like, wow, what am I going to do? Like, I had this football scholarship and I lost it. Unless, obviously I could have gone back and like taken the 3 credits and did all that stuff. But instead I went out into the woods that night and got drunk with my friends. And then and there was
a choice. That is a choice.
And it was perfect because I came home and I put the television on and there was a special about the National Geographic photographer. And up until that point, I didn't really realize that I could be a photographer and that it could be fun, that it could be something without just doing portraits. Like it could be really anything. Went to bed that night, woke up the next morning. My parents were eating breakfast. I was like, I don't want to play football anymore. I want to go to art school. And everything changed. And I felt that I really connected, because I've always been like a little bit of an outsider, like not really fitting in. And once I connected to the art, I'm like, oh, I feel like here it is. Here's that missing piece that I didn't realize that I had. But then fast forward much later, I was working in information technology, couldn't stand it, was doing Kundalini Yoga teacher training, was 2 months into my training, 2 months into this new job that I thought would be spectacular, and I couldn't take it, and I ended up quitting without thinking, without realizing. The anniversary is almost coming up. It was Super Bowl Sunday, 2010. And my boss at the time was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I guess I'll teach yoga and be a photographer. So they both happened at the same time. I kind of was always just like, oh yeah, I teach on Wednesdays and Thursdays. But photography was really more of what was sustaining and like paying the bills. Yeah. So it just kind of went that way. And literally it was just like, oh yeah, I teach yoga too. And then it wasn't until really the last year that I've embraced the teaching and being a guide and all of those kinds of things a lot more. And that's where I am now. Where I'm like, sorry.
No, go finish your thoughts.
I was gonna say where I'm more in 2000 and like I want to say maybe 7. I had a Vedic astrology reading, and Bethela, this amazing woman, said, you're a teacher, you're a guide, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I am not that at all, and I just couldn't accept it. And then up until this year, everything happens when it's supposed to happen. And I'm like, oh, right, I am. Like, I'm doing the same thing behind my camera that I do with someone when I'm coaching them. And then I was like actually stepping out in front of the camera to be like, right, I can help you tap into that infinite creative being that you are without my camera. And that's where I am now. And I kind of like combine a little bit of everything. And, but I've been teaching yoga for the last 10, 11 years as well. Like they've all been right next to each other, but it was just like, oh yeah, I happen to teach, it's kind of like keeping it on the down low. And now
it's funny how we will not claim our gifts.
Mm-hmm.
We can enjoy them, but it's almost like we have to come out of the spiritual closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fascinated by the work that you do about inspired creativity. Working with the arts. It seems like you work with it. Well, certainly photography is such a creative art. And by the way, you're an excellent photographer.
Thank you.
You seem to bring out the essence of your subject. It's not just posing somebody in a nice pose or an interesting pose. I feel like when I look at some of your work, that I know the story behind these people. There's something that you're bringing to the forefront of that soul.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I want to talk about using Kundalini energy a little bit further in here, about creating our lives, creatively manifesting your life, which is part of what you claim as your business. And because I think so often, Joe and Tracy, again, so many people compartmentalize their spirituality. Well, my spirituality is what I practice on Friday night or Saturday or Sunday. I go to a mosque, I go to temple, I go to meeting house, I go to church, I go wherever. But spirituality, I know we try to really look at creativity as that's the expression of our spirituality, because we are authentically creating life, and that's what we're here on this earth to do in this realm.
Yeah.
So you work with a lot of very creative people in their own right, whether they are artists or musicians or talented people of one kind or another. Were you encouraged as a young child to explore your own creativity or your own spirituality?
Yeah, I was never discouraged. And I joke with my mom a lot about this. My mom was going to be a nun before she met my dad. Very Catholic.
Mm.
She's like, dad, she's always, has this really strong connection with God. So that has always been there. There's always been, like, growing up when I was a kid, there were always like Catholic altars in my house. And before bed, there was prayer. Then there would be a statue of Jesus and Mary and all of that. So that was always there. And then when I was in third grade, my parents became born again Christians or evangelical, and they left the Catholic Church. And being in third grade, seeing my parents do that, knowing that their whole family would be like, what are you doing? It took a lot of courage. And that, without them realizing, and I joke a lot with my mom about this, it inspired me to follow my own path. Because my mom would say what the Catholic Church was giving me wasn't feeding my soul, and I needed to go find it. And that led me not to know that I didn't have to follow their path, but I can find what resonates with me. And I've always felt very spiritually connected. Like, I knew from the time I was 5 that there was no separation between me and God. Like, I knew that God was inside of me and that I'm God. Like, we're all the same. We're all connected. Like, I just knew it from the depths of my soul. And I just kept moving with that. So that was the spirituality side. And the creativity side, my father is an artist. He had a screen printing business. Most of my brothers and sisters could draw and paint, but I cannot draw or paint. So I just assumed that I wasn't an artist. And then when I failed that photography class, I fell in love with photography. I was like, oh, here it is. Here, I don't have to draw a straight line. I don't have to be able to paint. I can paint with the light that I'm seeing through the camera. So that, like, really brought everything together. So yeah, it's been with me my whole life. And I'm sure when my mom hears this, she'll be like, no, I didn't. I'm like, you inspired this. Like, you inspired me to follow that voice inside, to find what spirituality resonates with me.
I want to call your mom and say thank you.
Oh, my mom's great. She's the best.
But to instill that bravery is pretty amazing. And to have that support on the home front is huge.
You're right. And still, I think when I say this to my mom, she's like, I didn't do that. Like, she didn't realize how courageous she was being by following that voice inside of herself. But, again, being in third grade, seeing that, it's just like I absorbed it like a sponge and just took it. And even then, like, I didn't agree with, like, going to church that they went to. I'd be like, I'm not digging what this guy is saying. Like, I'm not going to go to hell for that at all. And,
we'll see, Joe. We'll see.
Right. Growing up, even now, like, I would poke my mom and be like, no, it's not like that. It's not. I remember having conversations saying, do you really think the Dalai Lama is going to go to hell? And she would be like, I'm like, exactly. He's like the richest man on the planet. He's not going to go to hell because he doesn't believe what you do. So
isn't it funny that you alluded a few moments ago to your brothers and sisters and the fact that they were talented artists and that they could draw, they could paint, and you already had it in your mind that if I can't do that, that's what art looks like to me at that time. And if I can't do that, then I am not that thing. Right. As opposed to the broader perspective you've obviously gained in life, that art is so many other things other than drawing. It's everything. It's how you arrange the flowers in the vase. It's how you plant the garden. It's how you dress your dogs up in funny costumes on Halloween. I don't know. I mean, art, whatever we decide it is. It's the beauty we see reflected back to us on those things that sometimes we don't have the courage to do ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a break for just a moment, and then we'll be right back with our very talented transformational coach, lifestyle design, creatively manifesting your life with Joe Longo. We'll be back in just a moment.
Live up to your fullest potential. This is the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Tune in to The James Dentley Show and learn strategies for success in business and in life. Dr. James Dentley is a proven success coach who knows how to convert good into great. You'll find out from the achievers and leaders how they got to be the success stories that they are. And Dr. Dentley and his guests will give you the tools you need to follow in their footsteps. It's time to become the best version of you. Listen to The James Dentley Show, Fridays at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Voice America Empowerment. Are you finding your frequency? It can be described as that space between failure and success. It's the future of digital media. It's finding your voice. It's engaging topics, content, and ideas. Jeff and Ryan discuss the digital media space and all of its aspects. It's about making the mistakes, taking the chances, summoning the intestinal fortitude to step out of your comfort zone, and discovering what you can accomplish when you decide to try, decide to learn, decide that you have something to say, and find your frequency. Live Fridays at 12 noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Follow us on Twitter for more great ideas at Voice America Empowerment.
This is Inspired Chi Radio. To reach the program today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to yourtruechi@gmail.com. Now, back to AJ and Tracy.
And welcome back to Inspired Chi Radio, your place to start your week inspired. And talk about inspiring, we are speaking to Joe Longo, a transformational coach, lifestyle design, creative, and creatively manifesting your life. And I want to get into the heart of this because Kundalini is something that I hear about all the time. I've had meditations, Kundalini meditations with Tracy in our own business, Inspired Chi. But I don't know that I really have a good understanding of it. It seems like there are so many different types of words we use to just talk about divine connection or divine flow. But Kundalini is the one that keeps coming up on my radar. And when it keeps coming up on my radar, the teacher appears. So thank you for being here again. And Joe, would you explain Kundalini?
Sure. So Kundalini is this beautiful, we're going to get deep into the woo right now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's why we're here, Joe.
So Kundalini is this beautiful ball of energy that has become dormant at the base of our spine. So back in the day, it used to flow freely, like that serpent energy. But because of the society that we live in, especially we're now all sitting at our desks typing, that energy has just become compressed, and it just is now like this dormant energy that sits at the base of the spine. So the idea of the Kundalini practice, Kundalini, is to wake up that dormant, sleeping energy, that serpent energy, to wake it up so it begins moving again, like that serpent moving its way up through the chakras. And as it moves, it will bust through blocks, self-limiting beliefs, old stories that we've told ourselves that keep us held down. Yogi Bhajan would say, Kundalini Yoga pokes you, provokes you, and then elevates you. You wake up that energy, it's going to poke you, and it's going to say, hey, you remember that thing that happened that you don't want to look at? Here it is. And it's going to force you to look at it. And then it's also going to get rid of it as well. But you have to move through the process. So the Kundalini is just this beautiful, it's the divine feminine energy that has been asleep at the base of our spine. And it kind of makes sense. Yogi Bhajan, when he brought the practice to the States in the late 60s, he was bringing it to teach teachers, not to create disciples, but to teach teachers, knowing that we were moving from the Piscean age into the age of Aquarius. So moving from this age of toxic masculinity into this age of divine feminine energy. So we would be prepared and be able to prepare people as we move into this new energy. And as we've seen, we are in the divine feminine energy. She is raging, but it's as if the pendulum is swung really far and she is kicking ass. And we need the Kundalini to bring it back to help manage both, because that toxic masculine energy, needs to be balanced with this divine feminine. And in order to balance it, we bring this Kundalini back to life. We awaken it. We awaken that powerful creative energy to heal both, so we can come into like this divine union, merging the divine masculine and the divine feminine together. I hope that answers your question, and I didn't just kind of.
No, that was fascinating. No, it absolutely did. And I'm better at note taker, so I've written all kinds of notes, but I love that. Pokes, provokes, and elevates. And the divine feminine, the divine masculine, they are in all of us.
Yes.
So it's not as if you identify as male that you have masculine, if you identify as woman that you have the feminine. We each have both, and like anything else in our lives, in balance, we're in the flow, we're in abundance, we're creating, we're achieving.
Uh-huh.
And when we're out of balance, perhaps less so.
Right.
Okay. So
we need that balance. And I was just reading a book. It's right here, The Sacred Flower of Life. I don't know if you.
Yes.
Book. And he talks about Atlantis. And at the time of Atlantis, we were in that perfect unison, both. And if you think of the hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere of the brain is the masculine, the right is the feminine, and both of them are working beautifully together. And then the drop happened. And in that drop, the separation happened. So a lot of the Kundalini practice is to connect you back, to realize that there is no separation between us, between me and you, between me and God. We're all connected. We are that infinite creative being, but we forgot where we came from. We forgot our origin story. And I've found, because I didn't realize when I started practicing Kundalini that all of this would eventually come to make sense the way it now makes sense for me. But this practice does help bring it all together and bring you back to that union, bring you back to that space of no separation.
So what I love about that, and you're speaking about how it is, almost shaken to awaken you. Mm-hmm. Now, when I had done, I did 2 group series of meditation with the Kundalini, mm-hmm. and the way that had come about was the year before I had done a 21-day spirit detox, almost like at the ground level, where it's like, let's get rid of some toxic stuff so we can focus on you. Mm-hmm. And when deciding what came next is where the Kundalini found me. And it was like, okay, we're going to do this. And, we always like to do things within our group, like, who are my test people? We're going to do this. And what we looked at was digging up that trauma, like you spoke of. What happened? You have to look at it. You have to heal it. You have to release its weight. Yeah. And in doing that will come the next step for you, that next synchronicity, that special person, that purpose that you were waiting for, your mission, mm-hmm. almost. So whereas the Kundalini comes in for healing, it also sparks that creativity. And I have found that each time we have done it, right after the process of unblocking and releasing some things, it almost births a new creation, a new mission, a new content delivery, spoken word, written word, reading, any type of thing. So my question to you is, when you discovered Kundalini and you went through it for the first time, what did that birth for you? What came out of that for you?
Oh, it birthed a kind, loving man.
Of course.
Wow. Would there be anything better?
Right. And I joke and I say, because I was, this a football player, I was that like bro jock dude, very unaware. So it brought me to, and Kundalini is, the yoga of awareness. It's the yoga of intuition. And it brought me into that space of being aware and being more kind, being more loving. And it kind of reignited my creative flow and made me, there was a time in my life where I didn't take any pictures. Even though I went to school for photography, there was like a 5-year period where I didn't take a photograph. And the practice brought me back to picking up a camera and going to walk in the woods and just taking pictures and like falling back in love with it. And it is the divine feminine energy is that creative energy. So as you start moving it and raising that energy up through your system, all kinds of good things are going to start creating and just flowing, because you're more in tune with that, with everything. You're connected to that infinite creative being that you are. And it's as if, you're crown chakra is just opened and all the goodness is just getting poured into you. So if you allow yourself to open, you're going to receive all kinds of goodness. And by doing the practice, you're opening up. And if you're in that space of unconditional love and compassion, you're just going to get so much information. You're like, okay, what should I do now? What should I create now? And you just start flowing with it.
It's interesting. If you allow yourself to open, you will receive. Do you find that throughout your practice that we talked about this last week, why wouldn't you want to open yourself? And people have some old religious dogma perhaps floating around, might be afraid of what you're going to unearth, might be afraid of what you're going to have to address, might be afraid of what you're going to have to leave behind. But this energy sounds, and I've experienced it a little bit, what you receive is so much better than what you might let go of. And when you feel this energy, I think you want to stay in it all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little bit easier to let go of some of the old crap. Fascinating.
I think it ultimately, what got me was realizing that we're energy. And the first Kundalini class I ever took, the teacher made us rub our hands together and then like really fast and then just play with that energy. And when that happened and I was able to really experience the creation of energy without seeing it, I then realized like, oh wow, like I am that creative energy and it's inside me. So I was more like, let's dive in and see what happens. And again, thanks to my mom, like blazing that trail, following her own path, it allowed me to dive in and not be afraid of what am I leaving behind? It was like, no, let's step into this. Let's dive in. And where are my superpowers? Like, let's bring them to life. But I totally see it with people that it scares them. They don't know what is happening. And because it does create this space of intuition, if all of a sudden you're just walking around and, you're in the typical hamster wheel of life, doing the same thing over and over again, and all of a sudden you start to become intuitive. What could that do? Like, am I going crazy? Like, I'm starting to notice things, and what I've noticed in teaching the last 10 years is sometimes people will see it and dive in. Other people will see it and run. And I'll get an email or a phone call that says, I love your class, but I can't take it. I can't take the energy. I can't take what is happening. And at that point, I'm always like, I know, but just trust me, just keep going. And what is going to come past that other side of fear is really where the magic is. But you have to allow yourself to get past it. But I have seen, like over the last 10 years, lots of people say, I'd rather go back over here and not play in that divine matrix. I just want to be over here where it's safe. And I know I can go to my job every day, watch my Netflix, and everything will be fine.
So for people who don't, perhaps are not confident enough yet to step out and put that toe over the line marked fear, or folks who are just perhaps curious at this point or thinking, well, I'd like to increase my intuition, what are some small steps? Because that's how many of us have to start learning something new. I don't have enough knowledge about this, and I tend to be a geek, so I want to research everything. But what could I do on a daily basis as part of, I get up, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, I take a shower. Oh, now I want to connect with my intuition. What are some small things that people could do, if done consistently, would help them on that journey, make that journey a little bit easier?
Breathe.
Breathe.
Breathe. Very, very simple. And I talked about it.
Well, Joe, I was going to breathe today anyway, so what the heck?
Breathe consciously.
Breathe consciously, okay.
Think about the breath. In Kundalini, we use the mantra Sat Nam, which means truth is my identity.
Truth is my identity?
Yeah. So if you just sit and breathe, it's almost like the Soham mantra in I believe it's Buddhist, I am that I am. Same concept. So if you sit down And for everyone listening, just try this. Try 10 conscious breaths. Inhale, think Sat. Exhale, think Nam. Or if you're afraid of Sat Nam, using some other language, inhale, think I am. Exhale, think I am. And do that just 10 times. And don't try to quiet the mind, because the mind is going to do what the mind does, and the mind is going to throw all the ideas. It's going to keep doing what it does. So instead of trying to stop the mind, let the mind do what it does, but use that mental mantra. Inhale, Sat, exhale, Nam. Inhale, Sat, exhale, Nam. And allow yourself to come to a space of calm. And in that, you're going to start going within. And within is where all the magic is. So I do this style of Kundalini that's taught by Yogi Bhajan, but Kundalini is everywhere. Kundalini is anything. It is why we do yoga, to awaken that divine creative force within us. It's why we move our body. It's why we get our spine going. It's when, we want to raise our vibration. When people talk about raising the vibration, we're raising our Kundalini energy. That's the vibration. That is what is happening. So you can listen to a song that makes you feel filled with love and joy. It just makes you feel excited. That's your Kundalini energy raising. I think there's been so many articles and things put out of people saying, I've had this Kundalini awakening and I thought I was going crazy. And I joke and I say most of those articles are written by someone's boyfriend who got pissed off that they started doing yoga and realized, oh, right, you're not the right person for me. So now,
Well,
and then, you know what I mean? It's like that. And people have had, experiences, but I always say, don't run from it. It's a new experience. Sit with it, integrate it, process it. But in that integration and processing, if you talk to someone that doesn't have a clue what you're talking about as you're integrating, they're going to say, you're crazy. Like, you need to be careful. You don't know what is happening. I say, it's your energy. It's your body. Take control and realize you're the infinite creative being.
Well, what I really find interesting about that unsupportive boyfriend for that yoga story is that, and I'm not saying that happened to me. I'm just saying that when you are in that Kundalini energy and you hit that vibration and you accept the gifts within yourself and create and birth and be in that energy and be in that joy, I find naturally what tends to happen is those people vibrate out of your energy. So that boyfriend vibrated right out of her energy and probably wasn't prepared for it because wasn't seeing the signs and seeing what was going on within and understanding her or him in, whatever case that is. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about all of the teachings and projects and really fun things that Joe Longo has going on this year in 2020 and where you can find his podcast. Stay with us.
Change your world. Change your life. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
Now you can take your favorite Voice America radio program with you anywhere. Sign up for our mobile app if you have an iPhone, Android, or Amazon Kindle. The Voice America interactive radio player powered by Aircast gives you the freedom to listen to any of our programs anywhere, live and on demand. No registration is required. Listen to your favorite Voice America hosts and discover new ones. Download the Voice America mobile app for your iPhone, Android, or Amazon Kindle, powered by Aircast. Visit the Apple App Store, Amazon, or Google Play. Are you looking for life's answers? How about the meaning of true self? Can you really be a better person overnight? Well, good luck with that. Now, if you really want to know more about this insane world and life we lead, tune into Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. You'll learn about how the brain operates under different psychological conditions. Some common sense. Heck, you might just actually learn something. Listen Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on Voice America Empowerment.
Are you aware that each one of us was born with a mission, a sense of purpose? Even if you don't know it yet, it will reveal itself. Pay attention to the clues that will lead you to uncover your mission. Listen to Mission Possible program with host Carol Ann Fernandez. Along with some amazing guests, Carol Ann seeks to help you along the journey to manifest your mission. It's time to unleash your greater potential. Mission Possible program airs live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Voice America Empowerment.
This is Inspired Chi Radio. To reach the program today, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. Or send an email to yourtruechi@gmail.com. Now, back to AJ and Tracy.
Welcome back to Inspired Chi Radio, and our guest today is Joe Longo. We're going to be talking a little bit about his podcast that he has, Inspire Creativity Podcast. We've been just discussing Kundalini energy. If you're joining us, absolutely catch the replay if you missed any of it or the rebroadcast. But Joe, let's talk about your podcast, Inspire Creativity. How did that begin, and what is your vision and mission for 2020?
All right. So it started by accident. Surprise, surprise. In 2017, I had this bright idea of doing a project that I called 30 Days of Inspiration, where I picked 30 people. For 30 days, I would create a piece of art with them and interview them. So we would get together, we would take a picture. Some, it was just like, oh, well, let's do this. Some people are like, let's do some super awesome things. I don't know if you're familiar with Natalie Levin. If you are not, you should totally follow her. She's an opera singer and an astrologist and a yoga teacher, and she's the best. And hers is one of the funnest episodes I did, because Natalie would sometimes do Facebook Lives. Now, remember, she's a yoga teacher, and she'll just eat a bucket of chicken, like KFC, or just a big giant vat of ice cream. And so I had this idea. I'm like, Natalie, let's do photos with you eating chicken, your KFC chicken, so you know what I mean? So it was fun, and I really enjoyed talking with people. And I just really enjoyed sharing. So after the 30 days, I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this, but more in a podcast format, because I was recording the interviews as well and putting everything out there. So from that, I started Inspired Creativity, because I'm photographing all of these inspiring people. There's so many in my life. Why not just sit down and have a conversation with them? So I did that for a season. And then last winter, around this time, I got super sad. Just woke up one day. I was like, winter, darkness. And I was not feeling inspired or creative at all. So I put it on hold. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then in this past summer 2019, I felt very inspired again. So I went out into the woods with my little recorder, and I was just like, it's coming back. I'm getting really, real. And recorded an episode where I was just talking with myself. And I really enjoyed that, because it was just me talking all of my woo-ness, all the things, with no fear. Just this is it. I have stuff to say, and I'm going to say it. And still interview, but it became more of a purpose to, on Sundays, I record Coffee Talk with Joe, because get a cup of Joe with Joe. And I just talk about random things and still do the interviews. So moving forward, it's still going to be a lot of that. I want to start tapping more in, because I'm Pisces, I'm very flowy, just whatever happens. But I'm trying to be more conscious of I want to talk to people about someone that knows all about the flower of life and talk to them about that. People that know all about the Akashic record and really talk about the Akashic record, to really dive deep in subjects as well, and have these, my coffee talks, or really whenever inspiration strikes, just hit record and talk and put it out. Just to get it out of my head, out into the world, knowing that maybe it will connect with someone. So that's really the goal with it. And to also show people, if you have an idea, do it, run with it. Don't not do a podcast because there are a billion podcasts. Who cares? Do it. Just put it out. And there are platforms out there now that you can literally do it for free. And if you're I don't know how, Google it. Ask the Google. The Google knows everything. Like you can figure it out. If you want to do it, just do it. So that's the podcast. It's a lot of fun, and I do it just because it's fun, just because I enjoy it, and it's this great creative outlet for me that when I feel motivated, I can just put it out.
I know our experience with doing this series of 8 podcasts has been radio shows that are going to podcast. We've done it for fun. We did it because it was something we hadn't done before. Tracy came to me one day and said, "Hey, I think we should do this." And as usual, I said, "Okay."
That took a little bit more convincing.
It took a little bit more convincing because, I was like, I'm not sure I have a message. I don't know how much time.
Do I want to stand in my greatness?
That question didn't come up till the very, very end. And then when we looked at each other and said, let's just have fun with it. And that fun has spurred a lot of creativity. I almost think like my old beliefs would have said, well, the creativity has to come first. And then if you have fun along the way, that's fine. Almost grudgingly, but it's not where you start. With us, it really was just, for our very first episode when we were recording it and we were struggling a little bit. And when we finally looked at each other, let's just have fun. It made all the difference in the world. So the next thing that I'm thinking I'm going to do for fun is actually attending a program that I know you will be hosting starting in February, and that is your multi-week Find Your Light Within program. And is it 6 sessions, Joe? Is that the number?
It started with 12, now it's going to be 6. It's going to be a little more accessible for people. It started out with, this big giant idea. So in my photography world, my tagline is capturing the light within. So my goal is to capture that light that's inside of you. And then I was going back and forth with a friend of mine, figuring out things. And he was like, dude, what is photography? Like, what do you say? Capturing the light within. He was like, with your transformational coaching, why isn't it finding your light within? Like keeping it all melding together. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant. So shout out to my friend Jason Blau for helping me with that. And it's a program, it's a transformational coaching program that over 6 weeks, we're going to go through what's called the 5D. And I kind of like it because it's positive psychology and the woo-woo.
Right.
So it's like defining the process. Like, what is your goal? Like, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? Part 2 is discovery, using appreciative inquiry. So looking back at your life and when you were kicking the most ass, like when were you really succeeding, and using that as a tool. And the 3rd week is dreaming. And this is just super fun because then you're dreaming. What does it look like when you hit that goal? What would it look like? What would that future be like? So we see it, we visualize it, we start, seeing what would your life look like if you hit this goal. The next week is design. So what is the roadmap to get you there? And these are all like just coaching questions, like, but what would it look like? What do you need to do? What kind of inspired action do you need to take to get there? And then we deliver. Like, how do you do this? How do you take that design and create a daily practice? How do you put that into a practice where you're now in the driver's seat and you're going, like you're actually moving forward? And it's not that at the end of 6 weeks, like your life is going to be figured out and your goal is going to be hit, but you're on track. You have a path. You have a map. Your coordinates are in your GPS system and you're going. And so it'll be that. There'll be videos. There'll be Facebook Lives. There'll be pre-recorded meditations that I do that everyone gets. And then depending on, like, if you want to focus on prosperity, you'll get a specific Kundalini meditation to do that would help inspire prosperity. If you want more clarity, there would be a specific Kundalini meditation that you get. And as we go through those 6 weeks, you would be doing that and incorporating that into your life. So it's part creating a daily practice, part looking at what you want to do, part taking responsibility for what you want to do, and taking action to actually bring it into your life.
And I have to tell you that this is something I hope that many, many members of our radio audience and our local community take advantage of, because when I read this and first started speaking to you about it, I immediately felt very energetically drawn to it. And I've participated working with other coaches, and no discredit to any other coach, but after a while, it seemed like I was on spiritual overload and wasn't able to sustain a practice or a comfort level of continuing to just go inward and look at this issue, knowing that each week I'm taking one step further along the path. Mm-hmm. Sounds exactly like both a great first step, as well as those of us who perhaps have been working on ourselves a little bit longer than others. It really, I think, is a very, very broad range, but keeping the focus on your own life. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be really significant, both in my life and for the lives of many of our radio audience, who we will strongly encourage to check this out. On Joe's site. Check it out on our site. We'll have all the links there. So we've talked about conscious breathing and as being one of the first best steps we can take, or the first best step to take. So I know I, for one, am going to be consciously breathing. And I will say in this breath how very delighted we were to have you here with us today, and you've been so gracious with your time, so educational, so informative. I feel like I want to now go out and learn everything and experience Kundalini. I want to experience it, so we'll be looking you up, taking some classes with you, no doubt.
Thank you so much.
So thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest today. And I do want to say about your program, even just describing the different components, whether it's 6 or 12 or 3 or however you end, that you feel like that is complete for you and for the clients who are going to partake in that. Just simply setting that intention is an important step. And then that forward momentum of action, because the universe loves action. So, I mean, I have found so much that you put that out there, you say, I'm going to do this. You start taking steps moving towards that, and then like little fairies flutter in with synchronistic, expression, inspiration, opportunity, the people, the places, the things. So that I think I will also be taking care of that as well. I think we might be doing that together. Joe, this sounds amazing. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you both so much for having me. This has been so much fun. So much.
Well, we're glad you had fun. You certainly educated and empowered us. And for our radio audience, again, our local clientele, please don't hesitate to check out Joe's podcast, Inspired Creativity. Check out his site. Look at the beautiful photography that he does. And again, thank you for choosing us karmically to be with us today. For all of our radio audience, thank you for tuning in, and bright blessings.
And just a little mention here, and I'm going to hold him to it by broadcasting this on national air. Joe Longo also agreed to pair with us to do a Kundalini workshop this spring in the Philadelphia and surrounding area. So we will have more detail on that, probably not when this airs, but soon after. So stay tuned to our website, to Joe's website, to see what we're up to. All of those links that you could possibly find will be below and will be on our site. And Joe, again, this was a blast.
Thank you so much for listening this week to Inspired Chi Radio. Be sure to join your host, Tracy Sanjaniti and AJ Johnsack, for another edition next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Stay inspired.